We all know that Toyota doesn't believe in an EV future, and they're a huge company, so their decision will have a big domino effect. And ammonia might be the answer they've been looking for. Will this be the end for EVs? But what is ammonia really? It simply means that instead of gasoline, this engine will use ammonia as an energy source, and this is very good for many reasons. But most of all, ammonia is made up of nitrogen and hydrogen atoms. So when it's burned, it doesn't produce any type of carbon, and there'll be no greenhouse gas. To some people, this might not mean anything, but even if you don't care that much about your car's carbon footprint, you should know that ammonia is abundant, and all of your worries about gas prices might be a thing of the past if this actually works, and it actually did. We'll explain how, but first you have to understand something very crucial to make sense of all of this. The potential of ammonia. Besides being environmentally friendly, ammonia has a very high energy density. What this means is that with just a small amount of ammonia, you can produce an enormous amount of energy. And we don't have to explain why this is a good thing, especially for storing and transporting energy. And this would mean a lot of change in how we use ammonia. Today, 80% of it is used only in the agricultural sector, and the rest is used to make explosives, dyes, plastics, and chemicals. But this is a very good thing because ammonia is in everything we use daily, and what that means is that it's already incorporated very well into the global market chain, and it wouldn't be hard for us to produce more of it. Plus, just like we said earlier, ammonia is made up of nitrogen and hydrogen, which are very abundant in our atmosphere. So the development of this engine is crucial to everyone, including you. Just imagine paying very little for a very little amount of ammonia and driving your car without any type of smoke coming out of the pipes, if it even has one. But you have to ask, how can we achieve this exactly? So let's talk about it. Making ammonia a fuel. There are three main ways to do this. The first option is to actually split it in half and then extract the hydrogen so it can be used as a fuel cell which can produce electricity. This is already being used, and the main company that is doing it is called Emoji, and they've already used it on a farming tractor, and they've actually claimed that it was the first time that ammonia has been successfully used without releasing any type of emission. Because the second option is to mix it with other fuels such as diesel, gas or hydrogen before burning it. It just makes it easier, and the company that is leading this approach is MAN Energy Solutions, and they've successfully applied it to a two-stroke green ammonia engine that is mainly designed to be used for maritime purposes. Lastly, the third method is using ammonia as the primary source without any modifications, and this actually makes it hard to use because then you have to consider the ignition, compression and homogeneous charge, which in simple words means it's very, very hard. So what makes Toyota's engine so different? They actually made it in partnership with a Chinese state-owned company called GAC, and they came out with an engine that operates by burning liquid ammonia. It's a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine capable of producing 161 horsepower, which might not seem much of a significance, but the average horsepower of cars is actually around 180 horsepower, which means that this engine is just a little below average. And the crazy thing is that it's just a prototype, so who knows what the future holds? And don't forget that this is an ammonia engine, so it reduces emissions by 90%. But they did not do this without any problems. One engineer at GAC said they had to overcome the main pain point of ammonia, which is how difficult it is to burn quickly and put the fuel to use in a passenger car. But if you're thinking that this seems too good to be true, well, you are partially right. We'll explain why, but before that, you have to know why it's actually difficult to use ammonia in order to fully understand the issue. Main challenges of ammonia. Obviously, there are a lot of challenges, especially with the practicality of using ammonia as a fuel source because of the infrastructure and other logistical issues, but we're not talking about that. This is a prototype engine, and the aim is to just show that it is actually possible to make it usable. The major problem with ammonia is that it's so hard to burn, and because it doesn't catch fire easily, it needs a lot of heat to just start burning. And we don't even have to mention how difficult this behavior is compared to other fossil fuels like gasoline or diesel. This is actually one of the reasons why we started using fossil fuels in the first place, but that is not all. Remember, one of the pros of ammonia how much energy it holds in just a small amount of it. This also means the engine has to be very strong to handle all the pressure released as it burns. This is what they had to figure out, and they did figure it out with one old trick, but we have to go back almost a decade in history. Old ammonia engines. About 10 years ago, a card called AMVET was developed by a Korean research institute, and it actually used ammonia as a fuel source, and they were able to cut down on its carbon emissions by 70%, which is very good and impressive. But the odd thing is that ammonia doesn't release any carbon upon burning, and this happened because they actually mixed it with 30% gasoline. But still, the fact that we can achieve this is amazing, and if you've been following along, then you might have already realized what GAC did. Their engine was able to cut emissions by 90%, and it did produce a small amount of carbon dioxide. They did this because, just like we talked about, ammonia is not easy to burn quickly, and engines that run at high speeds or low power need it to do so. By mixing it with other fuels, GAC might have been able to solve their problems. But if you're thinking that this is cheating, you have to understand that this is still very impressive, and honestly speaking, we need this because of the way things are going on in the world, and we're not talking about global warming. Why does this matter? We have to acknowledge the impact of combustion engines on the environment. But there is one more reason that this engine matters so much, and that is policies. Governments around the world are trying to get rid of combustion engines, including China, which has the biggest EV market in the world, but there is still a huge demand for traditional combustion engine cars. But the Chinese market is going down the same road as California did, and there are talks about banning combustion engines. Which might seem like a good thing, but the grim reality is that although they're undoubtedly good, EVs have a long way to come before they're as convenient as modern-day combustion engines, and even California has been facing a lot of problems lately. This is one reason why Toyota doesn't believe that EVs are the future. And new kinds of fuels, such as hydrogen, ammonia, and synthetic fuels, might make the combustion engine last longer. Eventually, these fuels might get cheaper and greener than electric vehicles in the future, and appeal to more people who want to save money and the environment. They might make it easier for more people to use their cars without worrying about charging or running out of power. The future of the ammonia engine. By now, you know all about ammonia engines, and the reality is that we can't afford to give up on them. We've come so far, and now that we see all the potential of it, there will be more discoveries and ways to make it effective.